Everybody, welcome to Levelin Up. It is another episode, and today is going to be a very special
3 levels of gratitude is a vehicle to make it easier for your brain, your reticular activating system, to more easily pick those positive solutions.
Everybody, welcome to Levelin Up. It is another episode, and today is going to be a very special day. I'm so excited. We have Nicole Kernohan on today, and we're going to be talking about exponential gratitude. And you're probably thinking, oh, gratitude, that's a heavy topic. Actually, it's going to be just so fun. We have so many different ideas here that are going to be something that you can come back to. And what's wonderful about this is Nicole and I are both experts when it comes to helping people reframe their stories and utilize gratitude in their life. And today, this conversation is going to be one you can come back to in multiple ways to see what is possible to take your gratitude on an exponential level. I'm really excited to have her on today. She is a wonderful coach, wonderful mentor, someone that I just recently got to know, and I'm really excited to have her. So Nicole, welcome to the call. How are you today?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's going to be a great chat.
Yes, it will. Well, I want to define what exponential gratitude means for you, and then I want to hear a little bit of your background.
Awesome. Yeah, I think the word exponential, like if we think about ourselves and our potential, we know it can't be measured. Right? That is generally an agreed upon philosophy and science. Our potential can't be measured. It's exponential. This like infinite perspective. And I think that with gratitude, and we're going to go super deep in this, it's going to be so fun. When you really think about it, there is no limit. You don't arrive at like, okay, I've arrived at my maximum level of feeling grateful. It's something that you can just continue to grow, to feel what that experience truly feels like. And then it shows up and it expresses itself to everyone that you cross paths with. So it's exciting.
That's beautiful. Well, tell me a little bit about your background. How in the last 10 years have you been able to utilize gratitude with your coaching clients and be able to help them reframe their reality and get so many wonderful results?
For sure. My background, quickly, I actually had a background initially in business and corporate, but I transitioned over the years. I think a lot of people who end up in personal development or positive psychology or professional development likely have some personal experience, right? That was an aha moment. Yeah. And that for me was originally, I met Bob Proctor 10 years ago when I was in a different entrepreneurial venture and I was struggling. And it was like a wake-up call. Like hopefully some people listening to this will hear some nuggets and this will be the first time they've heard it. And they'll be like, what? Oh my gosh, I've never heard this before. That was me 10 years ago. I stumbled with Bob Proctor, right? One of the mentors of the world. He's passed on now, but he shifted my lens. He shifted the way that I saw myself and the world and what's possible. And you can shoot big. You can have, you have these paradigms, these habitual ways of believing and acting. And anyways, that's how I initially got into this industry. I've taken many courses and certifications since then, but that philosophy of shifting your lens, changing. It's hard to even describe in words because although you probably can do that as you're an expert in great language, but it's a feeling. It is literally the way you two people can look at the same circumstance and see different things, feel different ways, have a different way of handling it. And that's really what gratitude is. So I had that epiphany when I first met Bob and had the awakening of shifting my lens through that experience. And the way we myself and my business partner, Tony Child, we leverage gratitude as a vehicle to help people shift their lens, help them see things differently, because they're going to end up in a very different place if they can change the way that they see themselves and the way that they see the world. It might not seem connected, but gratitude is absolutely a vehicle to creating that shift.
That's wonderful. I think whenever you have a mentor that opens you up to new possibilities, it is such a gift. I've had so many mentors that didn't just like switch lenses. It was like they took me out of where I was and placed me in a completely different world because of the breakthroughs that I've experienced. And shout out to the Final Percent, because this is one of those groups that often I feel like I'm like shedding skin of who I used to be and stepping into that new reality. Let's stop here just for a moment about gratitude. And first, make sure we remind everyone what the triad is so that we can tie this into gratitude, because this is going to fundamentally help every single one of you understand some practical, tactical ways that you can apply this. And then we're going to get deep into what the 3 levels of gratitude are, because a lot of people, they only really get to that first level. And we at Levelin Up want to make sure that you can level up and get all these levels of gratitude. So let me first give you the 30,000 foot overview of what the triad is. This is something I learned from the Final Percent. It's really like a triangle, right? I want you to think about this as a triangle. At the very top, it is the things that we focus on. What is it that we're focusing on? If you spill the milk, if you're focusing, oh, I spilled the milk, you are now going to create language or meaning based upon that experience. And then from the language you use or the story you tell yourself, now you're going to have that impact your physiology. And then that physiology will start to impact what parts you focus on again. And it can either spiral upward or spiral downward based on the way that you think about it. The reverse triad is how you flip that. You can actually choose how you respond physically first, and then you ascribe meaning to it, and then you focus on something. Now, if we have this framework in mind and we say, I am in charge of my physical reality, and we choose how we respond, then we can actually create our own meaning for whatever the circumstance is and the language around that, so that what we focus on will be able to empower us, so that we get to have a new lens to look through. Now that you have this framework, I know we talked a little bit about this, Nicole. How does this idea of controlling your responses apply to gratitude? I'm going to let you take that for a moment. Then we'll get into 3 levels.
Good. I also just love different versions and different philosophies that they're all, like we said this right offline, they're all interconnected, right?
Oh, yeah.
In some ways, just saying things in different ways resonates with people that differently, not even better, like one person just receives it differently. So I really hope that they can see that connection. And I love what you're saying. So when I go through and express and teach about the 3 levels of gratitude, and just even in my own experience of practicing the 3 levels of gratitude, I would also call it is a vehicle to help you make it easier to choose a different response than maybe what your pre-programmed response would have been to the circumstance that you would have automatically put into the judgment of this is bad, right? Or I spilt the milk, that's bad. I'm such a, clumsy person, whatever story you make about the circumstance. Practicing the 3 levels of gratitude is a vehicle. There are others, but this is one way to help program yourself to make it easier, I'll say, to choose to say, oh, I spilled the milk. Whoops, no big deal. I'm going to just say, oh man, isn't that funny? Okay, I'm going to clean that up and we're going to move on. And I know you saw the TEDx talk where I talked about even focusing on holding it steady. Instead of saying, oh, I hope I don't spill the milk, say to yourself, hold it steady, hold it steady, hold it steady. I've got this. I'm strong. I can do this. I can hold it steady. So the 3 levels of gratitude is a vehicle to make it easier for your brain, your reticular activating system, to more easily pick those positive solutions, because you're shifting the lens with which you view yourself and the world.
That is beautiful. Now, if you are like, well, the reticular activating system, what are we talking about? I want to give you a quick example. This is one of my favorite ways to make sure that this lands for people. I like to call it the red car principle. I've heard it multiple times, but if someone said, hey, I'm going to give you $5,000 every time you see a red car, do you think your brain would be like, I'm going to look for that red car everywhere? You might drive to a parking lot and try and identify as many red cars as you possibly can. That is the reticular activating system on high drive. That is like the filter that you go through. In language learning, we call this the affective filter. It's like that language barrier. If something is important to us, it gets through. If it isn't important, you're like, oh, that's not going to make sense. It hits a wall, metaphorically, and it doesn't penetrate our head. Or it might go all the way through, in one ear and out the other. Mm-hmm. What does this mean for you and your thankfulness, for your gratitude? Let's go into the first level and help us understand how we can activate that reticular activating system so we can notice a little bit higher level of awareness, how to utilize thinking thankfulness. Go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you. That's a great description too. Great analogy of the reticular activating system. So thinking thankfulness is level 1 of gratitude. This is through Elevated Worldwide, just to know where the source of it. This is the company I partnered with that Elevated created GratiShift, and thinking thankfulness is level 1. That is essentially using the conscious part of your mind, where you are looking around in your life to consciously say, what are things that I can choose to be thankful for? So you are looking around in your reality. This is not visualizing something that's not yet here, or, you can do that. Future gratitude, a separate thing. But for this, you're really looking around to say, what are things that I can consciously look around in my environment, in my life, family, a roof over my head, a bed to sleep on, clean drinking water, the sky, where you're looking around to intentionally choose to say, I'm going to choose to think. This is a thought right now. So this is just a thought. You don't even have necessarily a lot of emotion yet attached to it, but you're just saying, I'm thinking that I'm thankful for this thing.
That's beautiful.
This circumstance. So it's level 1, and that's usually where people stop. If they have a gratitude journal and they're writing, I'm thankful for these things, right? That's usually level 1.
I think a lot of people get to that point relatively quickly. They're like, oh, I see what God has blessed me with, but they may not start to internalize it. So let's go from the conscious identifying things to the subconscious. How do you help people process gratitude so it becomes more of a tool?
Like moving into the second level?
Yeah, going to the second level, unless you want to go a little bit deeper on the first level first.
Well, what I might just say to kind of to lead us into the second level, right? There's the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. I don't know if your listeners all use that terminology, or if you use that terminology. The subconscious part of you, like these two parts of your mind, the subconscious part of you controls, the estimated is 93, 97% of your life, your results, your actions, your feelings. This is where your self-image, your beliefs, your habits, all these things are in this deeper subconscious part of you. So when you're thinking thankfulness on level 1, it is better than not thinking thankfulness. It is still influencing you. And you kind of just influencing just a small part of you. You might just think it and then move on, and then the rest of your whole day is the same as the old way, or the way you used to think, or your old perspective. Feeling appreciation is where you're now trying to move into the subconscious, where you're moving into the emotional mind. Sometimes, like Bob Proctor, I think, would call it your emotional mind. It's like, or your feeling mind. But that, right? And Brigham, but I'm sure people know, even if they are just in their own life, when you're feeling better, you change your actions, you do things differently. People feel different in your presence, even when you aren't. Like you're communicating just through body language, just through your energy, through eye contact, right? So it is so critical to move into the feeling of appreciation, the feeling of gratitude, which is level 2, is getting into the feeling of it. And I can share a couple of ways that I invite people to do to get into that feeling state. And just to emphasize the importance of feeling appreciation. If you can get into the feeling state, you can actually make it much more.
I think this is so essential. Guys, I want to make sure that I give you the visual that's in my head for this. Many years ago, I had someone bring up this example of a pickle and the difference between a pickle and a cucumber. When you take a cucumber and it is completely immersed in that brine and that vinegar for a long enough period of time, it has a fundamental shift in its molecules. On a molecular basis, it is a different thing after it's had that time in the vinegar. But if you just take a cucumber and you're like, I'm going to dip it in vinegar, and then you eat it, it's just a salty pickle. Right? You're like, oh. What we're going to talk about here for you is the way that you start this process. And if I understand you correctly, this will take time to permeate all the way through your person and make sure that it's not just going to stay on the surface level. Just like that iceberg, it starts to go all the way farther and farther and farther until it becomes who you are. So let's talk about how you do that and some of the practical, tactical skills.
Awesome. And yes, 100%. It is typically we start with just a 30-day process. Just to clarify, in terms of the becoming, you don't do gratitude and practice the 3 levels one day and then you just become the pickle, right? It is.
You're a cucumber.
30 days.
You're a cucumber until you become the pickle. It takes time.
30 days every day, like, is our starting point of starting to become a pickle. Mm-hmm. But the way you've seen yourself and the way you've seen the world for your whole life up until now is not typically, unless you've had a major emotional impact, but it's not typically shifted in a few days. It does have to be an ongoing practice. And that kind of like we talked about at the beginning of the exponential, even when you do arrive at a new level and you're like, wow, I am being the essence of gratitude right now. I feel different. Even when that happens, there's more. You don't, it doesn't end. Like then there's more after that. And you're like, oh my gosh, now I feel it. I thought I felt it before. Now I feel it. So I just wanted to emphasize your point, and I love that analogy of it does take time. It is time with repetition, intention, emotion of practicing these levels, or any tool or anything that you're really intending to build. It does require that practice so that it becomes the habitual way. In terms of feeling appreciation, one of the best, simplest, easiest ways you could do right now, today, to feel the feeling of appreciation is to express it. To find someone in your life who you haven't properly thanked for something, that maybe they did something meaningful in your life 10 years ago and you gave them a thank you, but you weren't perhaps not in a stage or a state that you could let them really know how much that meant to them, right? Expressing appreciation, even to one person, including to yourself, maybe even expressing appreciation to God, expressing appreciation to the garden, like just actually doing the expression of appreciation. Typically people start with other humans in their life, or God, but to truly feel the feeling of appreciation. And it might be something specific. Like I'm so grateful that my son made that funny joke this morning. It was so cute. And I just remember replaying that in my mind. And I just like, I can feel the feeling of that. Mm-hmm. So, and then, sorry, like just to clarify, like getting into the moment of the feeling of it and then actually expressing it and saying, hey, that was so cool when you said that thing, or like, I really love that when you did that thing, to a child. If you're speaking to an adult, you may use slightly different language. Mm-hmm. But I don't know about you, but most people don't express appreciation even when they think it. Sometimes they think it. Sometimes they don't think it, but sometimes they do think it, but are scared to say it. People, like it is, I don't know, maybe this isn't for your experience or your people, but I know because we've had enough clients over the years who have said, I was so nervous to send that text to my mom to tell her how much I appreciate her. And I've really like they were nervous, like if they're going to get rejected perhaps, or if they were going to get no response back, or if they were going to say, are you okay? Why are you sending me this weird message? And, right. That goes to show like how much we don't currently express appreciation. So that's one way that you can get into that feeling state.
That's a beautiful tip. Expressing appreciation. I 100% say that is something that you want to do. And I want to express a gratitude and appreciation for you showing up on the podcast and all of you guys that are watching this again. Turn to your neighbor, turn to your friends, and let them know how much they mean to you. Sometimes we don't know how long we have. Here's an experience that I had a few months ago. I had a friend from Toastmasters who, it was just a good buddy of mine. I was mentoring him for about 6-7 months, and he just delivered his very best speech he ever had. And I was going to go play handball with him. I said, yeah, let's go next week. And then I got busy and I said, I'm going to have to cancel. I'm going to go to Utah. And then I got a call, but it wasn't him. It was his wife. And I didn't answer the call. And I was like, what was going on? And she texted, say, hey, Bob passed away. I was like, it's like weights on my chest, felt like a rock that just was dropped on me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I never got to play handball with him. I said I was going to, and I never got to. I didn't get to say thank you even for the invite. So sometimes we have these moments of reflection, and it doesn't mean I didn't love him, doesn't mean that I didn't appreciate him, but sometimes we forget that if you don't verbalize it, they don't know, they can't read your mind. And when we're talking about that triad, this is not getting to the physicality or the physiology of expressing it. Sometimes we get stuck in our head. You focus on something, you create language or a story around it, and then it gets a closed mouth and nothing happens. This is loneliness in reality. This is someone that is wanting help, but not willing to open their mouth. If you don't speak your mind, people don't know it. So thank you, Nicole, for reminding me of that story. And here's a warning for everyone. Go out there and show appreciation to your friends, your family. We don't know how long we have with them. We don't get to see what the game clock is on the scoreboard of our life. We get to choose today how we show up, and we get to show appreciation. We have that opportunity, but we don't ever get forced into those things. So let's go here for the third level. I think this is a beautiful way to wrap this idea of generosity and gratitude up. Talk to us about acting in generosity, because acting, this is so essential. Go ahead.
Thank you for sharing that vulnerable story as well, because that is also a powerful way that you can feel appreciation, is to lose something, right? That is often when we do appreciate it, is when we've lost it. And
Right.
so I appreciate you sharing that story.
Okay.
So as we move in through repetition and intention and practicing the first level of gratitude, thinking thankfulness, and then going into the second one where you're feeling appreciation, you're tapping into the emotions of what it feels like and overflowing into expressing appreciation. The third level of gratitude is acting, right? It's acting in generosity, not just because you should be generous or you have to or you need to, right? But to truly, when you've done the work of getting into that state of, wow, look at all the abundance all around me. Oh my goodness, I truly feel appreciation. I'm expressing appreciation. You feel like you want to be more generous, right? So that's what we don't start with level 3. You actually want to get into the feeling state of, I have so much that I can give, and I don't need anything in return. So true generosity is giving without the expectation of something in return.
Oh, that was good. That was good.
Yeah. And even as much as a thank you, that you don't need a thank you. Now we'll talk about the other side of receiving, right? So you will appreciate a thank you when you act in generosity, but you don't need a thank you. When you're truly acting in generosity, you can, even if they can't receive it, which we'll talk about in a sec, right? They may not be able to receive it, or they may not say thank you, they may not appreciate it. That's their experience of it. You may not be as generous to them, not because you're trying to punish them, but whatever. Like sometimes we innately end up giving more to the people who appreciate it more. So there is going to be a natural law, because of how you're giving and receiving. But it truly is. It's like the willingness to give time, money, love. It can be love and appreciation as well. But time and money are often the things that people think about, is like, how can I give and serve without expecting anything in return? We know it'll come back in some way or another, but not expecting it to return.
Okay, Nicole, I just had a story pop into my head. This was one of those happened multiple times. Because you were talking about how when someone responds very generously to what you give to them, it makes you kind of want to do more for them. I had this neighbor that was right across the street from me, and my wife and I, we love to bake bread and give it to people, because she's just an amazing baker, right? She does sourdough, and it's like that crispy crunch that you get when you're squeezing sourdough. Oh, just fills my soul with happiness.
You can read on thankfulness and appreciation of the sourdough, right?
Right?
You can feel it right now. And now you're moving it into generosity.
Right. So I would often bring bread over to my neighbor, and the way that Michelle would just light up, she's like, "Oh, I'm so excited to eat this. Thank you so much." That gratitude made me literally want to go bake more bread for her and bring it over. So we probably gave her like 3 or 4 times the amount of bread that we did to all the other neighbors, because of her response and how good her generosity made me feel. And I know that's kind of a dopaminergic way to respond. That's one of those bliss points. You're like, oh,
right. You did win
good.
In that too. It was a win-win.
It's a win-win. Like, she feels good, I feel good. And it's just happiness. And just thinking about it, like, literally makes me happy again. So thanks for that reminder.
You know what? I love that example, because that leads to receiving. Because if you can't complete the 3 levels of gratitude, you can't be generous if there isn't someone to receive your generosity. So, like, I love receiving acts of generosity. If I were there and you were doing the sourdough bread, I would probably be that person. I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. My neighbor next door does bring us food. they have like Mediterranean style, so good.
Mm.
And I appreciate it a lot. And maybe that's why they give us more. I don't know how much they give to the other neighbors, but it really is about receiving. If you like, and I just so grateful you gave that example. You're like, we probably gave Michelle, I think 3 times more bread.
Yeah.
If you can receive, if you can't receive a loaf of bread, how can you possibly receive all the goals and dreams and abundance that you wish for if you aren't able to receive even the smallest of things? And receiving closes the loop of gratitude. If there's no receiver, if you keep giving and giving and giving, and it stops there, you're not allowing the generosity person to experience the essence of generosity. Generosity feels good when it's received. It doesn't really complete that feeling state if people are like, no, I don't need your help. No, I can't. No, don't bring anything. We got everything covered. Don't say that. Next time someone offers to bring something to your house or your event, or say, yes, sure, I would love for you to bring something. Thank you so much for offering. Even if you don't know what that you need yet, just say, yes, I will receive your offer of generosity. It's such a good feeling, and people feel great. The givers feel so good when you receive what they've offered, right?
This is so true. I remember as a missionary, I had this elder who wanted to give me lunch, and I was a brand new elder. I was like, I don't know, I can pay for my own lunch. And he's like, well, no, let me buy you lunch. And then he opened up this scripture and he said, if you don't let me give you these things, I'm not benefited and you're not benefited. Nobody wins, and that's a lose-lose. If I offer something and you say, I don't want it, no, thank you, and you get all up in arms. So literally receiving, it is our open hand principle. In the final percent, we talked about this. It's really tough to give or receive if you have a closed fist. But if you have an open fist, you can have people give you hedgehog. You can give to somebody else. You can do so many things. But it comes down to how willing you are to receive and give. Very similar to like a cup. I used to do this in my Chinese class, my theater class. When we were talking about communication, I'd fill up these cups and have a little ball, and sometimes I would do water, but I want you to imagine you have all these kids that have tiny little cups and they cannot face each other. They have to be facing one way and they have to go over their shoulder and they have to communicate so that they can drop that little ball, or the dice. Sometimes use that, but usually water was the thing I wanted to use most of the time. I didn't get to, but they'd have to go over their shoulder and someone would have to be behind them and try and catch it. This is high level communication, because if you can do that and not drop the ball, your message was received. Playing pitch and catch. So there's a lot there. Tell me a little bit, how do you not just have acts of generosity, but receive them well, in your opinion?
That is a tough question, because I'm not sure about you, but a lot of folks probably who are the types of people who might be listening to this podcast would probably call themselves generous, are likely taking action, and they're more likely, not for sure, but they're more likely to be the type of person who finds it easier to give than to receive. At least that's our experience in Elevated.
That's my experience. Way easier to give than to receive.
Right. And so I actually invite people for 2 things. One, do the levels of gratitude. Practice recognizing all the good that's around. Practice feeling appreciation. Practice that feeling. So then when you do get something, you're in the habit of feeling appreciation. You're in the habit of thinking of thankfulness. Oh, wow, look at all the abundance that is all around. Good things do happen to me. So practice training your brain to think thankfulness and feel appreciation, so that when things like are given to you, you are in a state where you're more likely to be able to receive it. Secondly, I would practice receiving small things. Just practice receiving small things, like a loaf of bread from a neighbor. Practice, for many, it is unfamiliar. It is unfamiliar because their tendency is to say, no, I got this. I don't need help. I can do it on my own. Right. I'm good. I don't want to inconvenience you. I don't want to ask you to support me. I don't want to ask for help. So practice receiving small things and practice asking for small things. Practice asking. I don't know. I don't know if it's fun. Just over the years, I think it's fun to ask for something, because believe, in my experience, depending on who I'm asking, I know that they want to serve. So I'm like, you know what? I know that that neighbor or this business associate really loves giving and serving and feeling meaningful. I'm going to ask for some help so that they get to win by giving and I get to win by receiving. So practice receiving little things, practice asking for little things in your pursuit of getting to bigger things.
All right. I have something that popped into my head that is perfectly aligned with what we're talking about. It's called the Benjamin Franklin principle. Have you ever heard about this, Nicole?
I don't know. Maybe when you describe
maybe.
it.
All right. Benjamin Franklin had a arch enemy, someone that was diametrically opposed, someone very different that from his viewpoint, like an enemy politically. And he had to humble himself. And the way that he was able to make a connection with this person, he says, hey, can you do me a favor? And he asked a favor of this man to help him. And by asking that favor, they built a connection and a friendship. They were still very politically different as far as their views, but they became friends and they met in that zone of agreement and friendship and saying, you know what, I don't agree with everything that you have to say, but I like you as a person. I feel like I'm better when I'm around you and I appreciate you for being here. And that made all the difference for him politically. This is so important when it comes to gratitude, is asking for help. Because if we don't ask for help, it's that closed fist principle. Oh, you close fisted God. Guess what? He might be pouring down blessings on you, but you don't have your cup open and up and ready. You ask for it, but you're like closed fist. You're like, well, you didn't get a receptacle for me to give you all these blessings. You're just getting all of the rain and none of the benefit.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a few different ideas. What does that make you think of as far as asking for help or asking for service?
I think it's just one of the things that we do have to practice, because it's I will say uncomfortable and unfamiliar. So I don't want people to think like that it should just be comfortable. It's going to be uncomfortable for a while. It's until it's not. And also just recognizing ego, like just knowing, like put your ego aside with this and just notice, just being willing to be vulnerable when you're sharing appreciation, be vulnerable when you're asking for help, be vulnerable when you're receiving from others. And just, it's such a beautiful thing. And I kind of find it, you'll come to a point, if you practice this often enough, where in my own life, I can't even imagine, I barely remember what it felt like to not be able to receive. Because I've practiced it for like 10 years. Like now I can receive. I will never reject. Maybe if I don't want it, but even then, I may be honest if it's truly something that it's not going to be useful.
Are we going to get in the fruitcake thing? Is that what's going on?
I'll probably will still, I will still receive it with gratitude.
For the avocado.
I love fruitcake. What? No. It's just it becomes familiar. It becomes familiar. So we have to push through the discomfort of these actions, like willingness to take action even when it's uncomfortable until it becomes familiar. And that's the gift to like how will that influence you when you can live in a state of feeling appreciation, and how will that influence your ability to interact with people, to show up and your best self, to get ahead in life or in business. We need to be able to practice these things and feel good about them.
Nicole, is it all right if I bring in a language learning principle really quick?
Absolutely.
All right. Now, some of you may not be learning a language, but every single one of us are at times having to learn a new skill, where you have to do something that is very consciously focused so that you can figure it out. Gratitude may be something that is foreign to you. It's unfamiliar. The way that I've been able to learn multiple languages is because I focused on how do I familiarize myself with this? How do I understand it? And one of the things I did often is I would sit next to someone in a restaurant and I would say, hey, how do you use this word? And that was the word I wanted to work on. Keeping it to myself made it so it was only in my head. But as soon as I got it into my physiology and I actually voiced it, I used it in multiple ways. I said it and then I heard it and I heard them say it. So now you created an experience and you become more familiar as you have the conversations. All of us are thinking, how do I have more conversations? What can I do to get this lightning lingo or the words that everybody is using into my vocabulary. You may not be learning a language as far as Mandarin or Spanish, but you absolutely can learn the language of other people and what they care about and their passions and their excitement. And as we interact and have those conversations, totally transform your connection. So I hope that was helpful. And it's kind of a random example, but it's so essential to ask for help and to use those words. Don't just leave them in your head. It's like what you were saying earlier. We have to act in generosity. This is so important. Mm-hmm. Now, in the last moment we have together, tell me, how do people get a hold of you? How do people connect with you more? And I know you have a book, Audacious Joy, that's coming out. So you can tell people about that for a second. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's so exciting. And depending on when folks are watching this, it's coming. Thank you for mentioning it. It's coming out November 5th, the ebook in the US, and then Canada's a week later. And then the paperback will be shortly after. But it's very exciting. It's my first solo book. And I do talk about gratitude in there and reference gratitude as well as identity, like really stepping in, leveraging gratitude as well as other principles to kind of step into your best self and find peace and freedom just by being, by being human, so I call it audacious joy because it's you're showing up I show up if you're probably in an audaciously joyful state, but it doesn't mean that I don't have struggles or problems or issues. It's just choosing to accept or be at peace or reframe. Like, and you mentioned earlier on, like, what is the story I'm telling myself about this thing that happened? Can I choose to believe that life is happening for me instead of to me? So I'm really excited to have that coming out in a month. And then to get a hold of me, I probably would suggest going to my name, NicoleKernohan.com. There is a free abundance journal on there. So it follows, it's partnered with Elevated Worldwide, but it follows some of the principles of some of the stuff we're talking about with daily repetition of shifting your lens. It is targeted towards abundance in all areas of life, but there's definitely a flair towards financial abundance as well. So that's where I'd reach out.
I love it. Well, Nicole, this has been such a wonderful conversation. I hope that all of you have this conversation start to change your life, especially in the area of gratitude. Express that gratitude, ask for help, do the things that you can to go through those levels, utilize the triad, use these tools, whichever one you're like, you know what, that's the one for me today. Use it. Don't just let it stay in your head. Vocalize it, verbalize it, do what you can to make it real and continue to level up your life, guys. It's not level off, it's level up. So have a great rest of your day and God bless. Once again, thank you for all you guys do.